Hello, everybody. This is Eliakim Cohen back with a fascinating episode of Shiurim by the Sea. Today's topic is pretty mind-blowing. It is going to be basically how the, I would say, bizarre ancestry of Moshiach, the Satan, and the founding of the state of Israel are all connected. And it is a very, very mind-blowing topic, and I think everyone's really going to enjoy this. This lecture is in the merit of Moshe Chaim ben Tuvia Mordechai Halevi, who just passed away a few days ago. His father sent me a message a few days ago. Could I daven for him? I said, sure, I'll daven for him. I'll learn Torah for him. And then the next day he messaged me that the son passed away. It's very, very sad. And the sponsor of this lecture is my dear friend Lisa. She sponsored 13 lectures in the past 3 months for her beloved friend Oscar, and she told me a few things about him. Oscar had such a hard life as a bricklayer, and he was developmentally delayed, but he was such a mensch and very smart, very emotional, cried easily, and very sensitive. She fought very hard with the social worker to get him out of a certain boarding home, and finally got him into a center with his 102-year-old mother. Wow, that's beautiful. And she brought him nachos every week. And look what an amazing thing that she's doing for the neshama. Like I mentioned in almost every single episode, when you pass away, your ability to earn merit is now finished. The only way that you can earn merit is sort of through others, the fruits of your labor. Meaning, in the next world, you are judged by the fruits of your hands. If you have children or friends who say Kaddish for you, that elevates you in the next world. If you have people that are learning Torah for you, that elevates you in the next world. It is critical to understand this. There's a reason why the Kaddish prayer is so powerful. There's a reason why people donate to yeshivas and to kollels in the names and in the memories of people that passed away. So it's extra special for me to do lectures for, neshamas that have left this world, knowing that it's going to elevate them in the next world. This lecture is very mind-blowing. I did part of this lecture, I believe, 6-8 months ago, but I've added new ideas to it. So if anyone that knows me, they'll know that I made Aliyah to Israel 15 years ago, and I've lived there ever since. Unfortunately, I left in March temporarily. It's been a little more temporary than I would have liked. But I love the land of Israel. I made Aliyah because everywhere in the Torah, we talk about the land of Israel. There's a mitzvah deraisa, meaning there's a mitzvah in the Torah to yeshuv be'eretz Israel, meaning to come and settle the land of Israel. I am, however, very critical of the state of Israel. The state of Israel, since its inception, and even a little bit before its inception, has been run, led, organized by very, very wicked Jews. That is a fact. Anybody that's done bare minimum research on this will understand this. What is going on in Israel for the past 77 years is basically a war, a spiritual war between the Jews that want Israel to be a righteous land of only the Jewish people, like it says in the Torah, under the umbrella of Torah, following Hashem's laws. And there are those that want it to be basically every other mediocre European country. No connection to Torah, no connection to Judaism. This is a war that has been playing out for 77 years. Every power base in the state of Israel currently is run by very, very wicked Rishoyim lefties. They were the ones that set up the country, and they have had power ever since. Even though the government is right-wing, they have virtually no power. The Supreme Court, the Attorney General, anyone that knows anything about what's going on in Israel the past few years will know that all of these protests against changing how the court system works in Israel is because the left still really controls Israel. It is their last bastion of control is the court system. They also control the army. Every single general of the army is a radical leftist. They are wicked. The IDF, soldiers, heroes, righteous people, their leadership is thoroughly wicked. This shouldn't be news to anybody. And I'm going to give a few quotes in a little bit to prove and emphasize this point. You see people like Ehud Barak, Ehud Olmert, Shimon Peres. These are wicked, wicked people. The state of Israel was founded by wicked, wicked people. Ben Gurion, Rabin. Again, this is just basic Jewish history. We're going to get to some of this in a little bit. If this is a surprise to you, then just learn a little bit. Nothing that I'm saying is a shock to anyone that knows anything about Israel or lives in Israel. There's a reason why we almost had a civil war, basically right up until October 7th. Righteous Jews are getting tired of living in a very wicked country. The power bases, the media, the universities, the court system, the IDF leadership, the unions, every power base of Israel is rotten to the core. If this shocks you, listen on. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll see why the founding of Israel couldn't have happened any other way. That's the point of this. This is going to blow your mind. This is such a powerful, powerful lecture. Again, I've been working on it for a long time. I keep adding new things, so I decided today I'll do this lecture. Everyone knows of the Chafetz Chaim, right? I probably mentioned the Chafetz Chaim in every single one of my lectures for a reason. The Chafetz Chaim says that you earn 60,000 mitzvahs an hour by learning Torah. There is nothing else in the entire world that gets you a better bang for your buck, for your time, than learning Torah. That should also just be obvious to any Jew out there. Hashem says over and over again what a special and cherished entity and gift and prize the Torah is. And only the Jewish people accepted it. That is our merit. We have no other merit that separates us from the rest of the world other than the fact that every other biblical nation decided to refuse the Torah. They would ask, what's in it? Oh, murder? No. Sexual immorality? No. Theft? No. We do not want the Torah. Only the Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do exactly what you want, Hashem, and then we'll figure out the reasons why, these different mitzvahs are. We have that merit. So the Chafetz Chaim lived at the time when the Zionist movement was starting, okay? And everyone always asks, well, Eliakim, aren't you a Zionist? Yes, I'm a biblical Zionist. I'm not a modern Zionist. There's a very big difference, okay? Biblical Zionism is that Hashem gave us the Torah and he gave us a land and we should be in the land learning Torah. That is end of story. I can't make it any easier. Modern Zionism is what it's morphed into. And it's why the state of Israel is a very corrupt and struggling place. And yes, there's so many amazing people there and beautiful things are happening, like I said, because it is a war. Israel is in the middle of it. It didn't erupt yet into a civil war, but it is a spiritual war that's been going on for 77 years since the state of Israel was founded. So the Chafetz Chaim was the Gadol Hador. He was the leader of the generation. He had a tremendous love for the land of Israel and desired to live there. On the other hand, he clearly despised the spiritual destitution that was to be the legacy of those that wanted to create a new Judaism on the foundation of the country of Israel and the language of Hebrew. Thus, he loved Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, but strongly opposed the separation of the land from the Torah. As we know, the land of Israel is like the body of the Jewish people, and the Torah is the soul. This recognition of the land of Israel's greatness also means there is a great responsibility for those that live in its borders. One time they read him a newspaper article in which they're called maskilim, basically the Jews that have no connection to the Torah, expressed his hope that in the end, the land of Israel would be an independent country like Bulgaria. Bulgaria, right? Which was established on the ruins of Turkey. The Chafetz Chaim burst out crying and said, "Does this matter make sense? We are suffering for 1,800 years. Our blood flows like water. We increase our prayers and supplications for a respite from the difficulties of the exile. And here they satisfy themselves with only a small amount. They have completely forgotten about the roles of our prophets set out for us and the promises of our holy Torah. The Chafetz Chaim did not want a Bulgaria. When he read this, he was in tears that Jews, after waiting 1,800 years, would be content with a land that Jewish people live in, basically a communist country with, farms and fields with zero connection to the Torah. That was devastating to the Chafetz Chaim. And with that, we will start the lecture. Okay. There's three components of this lecture. There's the state of Israel. There's the Satan, as the Christian world says. And the lineage of Moshiach. How are they all connected? Well, that's our job during this lecture, to connect this and really blow your mind. When I did this lecture, I think 6-8 months ago, I got so much good feedback from it, but I wanted to add to it because there's, especially now, with the focus of the world on Israel, it's good to actually know the background. And it's good to know why it had to happen like this, because so many Jews out there, so many righteous Jews out there are so frustrated what they see in the state of Israel today. Gay pride parades, terrible behavior, wanting to make peace with open enemies, traitors like Naftali Bennett, claims he's right-wing and then makes all these agreements with the left and almost destroys the country. It is getting to the point where Jews just don't understand. Why does it have to be this way? And at the end of this lecture, you'll see why the state had to be started like this and why it's incumbent upon all of us to change that. Every mitzvah we do, every act of kindness that we do, every drop of tzedakah that we do, we are taking power away from the Rishoyim that control Israel, and we are giving it back to those who want the country to be a beautiful, blossoming Jewish country with Torah under the umbrella of Hashem. And again, the Vilna Gaon was very, very clear that at the end of times, the Erev Rav, meaning the mixed multitudes, who we see today, will have control in the land of Israel. Chazal has been saying this for a very long time. So this is not a shock that very terrible, wicked people have lots of power in the land of Israel. This is stuff that was foretold hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago. Okay, what is the Satan? What is the Samech Mem, right? What does he have to do with all of this? Well, there's a very interesting thing in Judaism that anytime something holy comes into the world, the Satan needs to be distracted and tricked. And you'll say, why? Well, the way that Hashem set up the world, there's Hashem, a very positive, beautiful force. He also had to set up a negative force, which was the Satan, which is, for individually, it's our Yetzer Hara. When you know that you're not supposed to do something and that, little angel, there's the angel and then the devil over your shoulder, it just keeps gnawing at you. And then you do whatever you're going to do, and then 10 minutes later, you can't fathom why you actually did that. That is the Satan. That is the Yetzer Hara. So anytime something beautiful, special, holy, something with Kedusha came into the world, like the giving of the Torah, like the ancestry of Moshiach, the Satan had to be distracted. That's just how it is. You'll see this on Yom Kippur, I'll get to in a second. Okay, there's a very interesting story in the Gemara. Rav Yehoshua ben Levi said, when Moshe descended from standing before the Holy One, blessed be he, with the Torah, the Satan came and said before Hashem, Master of the universe, where is the Torah? When the Torah was given, every single creature in the world knew that the Torah was given, right? Everyone knew that the Torah was given. There wasn't a sound in the world. It was absolute silence. That was why Yisro came, right? We know that everyone knew that the Torah was given. Yet the Satan, a very, very powerful spiritual force at Hashem's creation, how did he not know? He comes and asks Hashem, where's the Torah? Hashem says, I have given it to earth. He then went to earth and said, where's the Torah? The earth said to him, God understands its ways and he knows its place. He then went to the sea and asked, where's the Torah? And the sea said to him, it is not with me. He then went to the depth and asked, where's the Torah? And the depth said to him, it is not within me. And from where is it derived that the sea and the depths answer him in this way? As it stated, the depths said, it is not within me, and the sea said, it is not with me. This is in Job. Destruction and death said, we heard a rumor of it with our ears. Also in Job. The Satan returned and said to Hashem, blessed be he, master of the universe. I've searched for the Torah throughout the entire world and did not find it. Hashem said to him, go to Ben Amram, meaning go to Moshe. He then went to Moshe and said, the Torah that the Holy One, blessed be he, gave you, where is it? Moshe evaded the question and said to him, and what am I, that the Holy One, blessed be he, would have given me the Torah? I am unworthy. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to Moshe, Hashem says, Moshe, are you a liar? Are you a fabricator? Moshe said before Hashem, master of the universe, you have hidden this treasure in which you delight every day. As it says, and I was his delight every day, playing before him at every moment. That's in Mishlei. Should I take credit for it myself? The Holy One, blessed be he, said to Moshe, since you belittled yourself by saying, I'm unworthy to say that the Torah was given just to me, it will always be called by your name. What do we call it? The Torah of Moshe. Remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant. That's in Malachi. Okay? So why did I tell you this whole story? Because clearly, the Satan did not know that the Torah was given to earth. Why? Why did the Satan not know this? I mean, the entire world knew this, other than the Satan. Why? Because the Satan would have made sure that it was never given to the Jewish people. Why? Because who's the Satan? The Satan is the accuser. He comes and he says, look at how terrible the Jewish people are. Why are they any more special than any other nation? This Torah is so pure and so holy. They do not deserve the Torah. And he would have had a good point. We weren't on a good level then. We just left Egypt, we're complaining, all these different things. So the Satan had to be distracted. It had to be tricked. Okay? You have to keep this in mind for this entire lecture. Any times, and we're going to go to 4 examples with the ancestry of Moshiach that are very mind-blowing. And I don't know if anyone's ever thought of this, but when we get to it, you'll see every single link in the chain of the ancestry of Moshiach is very, very bizarre. That's the best word. They're just bizarre. Incest, prostitution, wife swapping. This is a mature, this lecture is for mature audiences only. This is a very peculiar way that the most holy person that's ever going to live is going to come from. Okay? So we're at the point now where we see the state of Israel was founded by very wicked people. The Torah was given to the Jewish people, but the Satan was tricked. The Satan did not know that it was given to the Jewish people. Okay, so that's where we are so far. Okay, the Igerish Shmuel says, anytime something holy comes into the world, the Satan comes with accusations. That's why every single avenue to Mashiach had to be masked in something seemingly improper. It is literally a bribe to the Satan. And we do this every single year on Yom Kippur. What do we do on Yom Kippur? We send a goat to Azazel, right? And we throw it off the mountain. Isn't that bizarre? That's a bribe to the Satan. We literally bribe the Satan, who accuses us all the days of the year other than Yom Kippur, right? The Chafetz Chaim says, anything holy, any great achievement, the Satan tries the utmost to interfere. The only way to get around this is doing it in a crooked way to seduce the Satan. Even Hashem seduces the Satan. Even Hashem has to trick the Satan. This is the system that God created. It's called shochad l'Satan, to trick the Satan. We literally do this on Yom Kippur. This year, God willing, when you are looking through your Yom Kippur Machzor, look at the place where we are sending that goat to Azazel. That is literally a bribe to the Satan. Why do we have to do that? Is the way that Hashem created the world. This evil spiritual force has a lot of power. And it needs to be tricked and subverted and basically lied to. The Satan did not know that the Torah was given. Okay? Before we get to the parts of Moshiach, let's get back to the state of Israel. Okay? When Herzl was young, as an assimilated atheist, he proposed the mass baptism of Jewish children and the voluntary disappearance of the Jewish people through assimilation. This is the Herzl that has every single street named after him. All of his kids intermarried. One of his kids committed suicide. They were all traitors to the Jewish people, basically. Herzl was never anything but an atheist. Religion meant literally nothing to him. But he respected it. He came to respect it more as he aged. He saw a need for a Jewish country. He did not care about religion and the sense of actual practice and faith. His concern was that the Jewish nation had a place of its own. He wrote a letter to the Pope saying, basically, leave us alone. This country will become Christian basically in no time. He had no care or regard for God. After such trauma of the Jewish people for generations, he wanted the Jewish people to just have a state of their own. He didn't care where it was. You realize the original plan was to have it in Uganda. So the land of Israel had no holiness to him, which is why so many religious people had zero interest in aligning with the modern Zionists. I'm going to read a few quotes from some just thoroughly wicked people before we get to, oh, you know what? Ben Gurion, there was a man named Joel Brand, right? He wrote a book. Joel Brand was approached by Eichmann, and he was told that if he could arrange for trucks to be given to the Nazis so that they could escape, they would release the 1 million Jews that were left in the concentration camps. Joel Brand was shocked. He had a chance to save 1 million Jews. He went to Ben Gurion. Ben Gurion basically told him, no, we have no interest in this. He said, basically the analogy that he used was, I'd rather have one fat cow than 1 million skinny cows. Meaning we don't have the resources or the room for these Jews. Joel Brand was horrified. He wouldn't let up. He wouldn't give up. So what do? The early Zionists basically told Joel Brand, go to Egypt, and there's a wealthy Jew there, and he will fund all of this for you. They then tipped off the Egyptians, it was run by Britain at the time, and they imprisoned him until the end of the war. And all of those Jews were incinerated in the Holocaust. He died alone. No one went to his funeral. He wrote a book. You can read this. There's also the Yemenite affair, when they brought tons of Yemenite and Iraqi, but mostly Yemenite families to Israel. They would take the children, claim that the children died from malaria or tuberculosis, and then the children were then given to wealthy families around the world. This is a known thing. The Netanyahu government, I believe in 2000, either 13 or 15, apologized for it. Something else that you can Google. Nothing that I say on my lectures, I'm making up. This is very distressing information, but it shows a glimpse of what the Jewish people are up against. There are some very holy and righteous people in the land of Israel. There are also some absolute monsters. We all know that someone like George Soros is a total and utter monster. But what if someone like George Soros was the general of the IDF or the prime minister of Israel? That is what we have had over and over again since the founding of the state. We have thousands and thousands of Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumers in the state of Israel that have lots and lots of power. Unfortunately, people get blinded. They never want to say anything negative about the state. And that's very harmful, because the entire lecture that I gave yesterday was about truth, was about MS, okay? So I'm going to read a few quotes of people that you will know. Yair Golan was almost the chief of the IDF. He is now a leader of the Democrat Party in Israel. Yair Golan is one of the most wicked Jews that has ever lived. He just created a big uproar the other day, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, by saying a sane country doesn't engage in fighting against civilians, doesn't kill babies as a hobby, and doesn't set for itself the goals of expelling a population. He refused to apologize when even left-wing people said, shame on you that you would say this about the IDF that you used to basically lead in Gaza. He said that we kill babies as a hobby. And of course, the rest of the world picks up on this, and this was front page news for a long, long time, and this dregs of humanity refused to apologize. Then we have Ehud Olmert. Ehud Olmert, also a thoroughly wicked individual. We must give up Arab neighborhoods in Jerusalem and return to the core of the territory that is the state of Israel prior to 1967, with minor corrections dictated by the reality created since then. For me to propose a division of Jerusalem was really terrible. I did it because I reached a conclusion that without it, there will not be peace. Here was a guy that wanted to give away the Western Wall, the Temple Mount, the Mount of Olives, basically everything in Jewish history. This dreg had no problem giving to an enemy that openly told the world they want to kill all the Jewish people. They will never make peace. Any agreement they make is a step towards the destruction of the Jewish people. Then we have Ehud Barak. Ehud Barak is on the Jeffrey Epstein client list. Ehud Barak, in my opinion, is probably the most wicked person that has ever lived in the state of Israel. He was quoted as saying, if I were a Palestinian of the right age, I'd also eventually join one of the terrorist organizations, basically giving them license. If anybody remembers the Altalena was a ship coming to Israel, I think with the Irgun on it. They were coming to help overthrow the British. Ben-Gurion did not want them. They were considered the more right-wing radical element. So he ordered that they be fired upon. It's a very famous slogan in Israel, remember the Altalena. Yitzhak Rabin, the catalyst for all the destruction and all the intifadas and all the terror attacks when he signed that disgusting Oslo Accord, admitted responsibility for the massacre on the Altalena and said he would do it again. Why? Because the old man gave the order, meaning Ben-Gurion, and he was happy to do it. And I'll just do one more. I could literally sit here for the rest of my life finding quotes that should sicken you. You should be vomiting right now that these people were prime ministers, leaders of the army. Benny Gantz. People like to call him a centrist. Well, this is what this centrist had to say. Benny Gantz, shortly before his discharge from the IDF, said that during Operation Protective Edge in 2014, he proudly risked the lives of Golani Brigade soldiers for fear of harming the residents of Shujaiya in Gaza. This man was almost prime minister. Netanyahu and Gantz had a power-sharing agreement in I think 2 or 3 elections ago. So this disgusting monster was almost the prime minister of Israel, a man who proudly admits he risked Jewish soldiers' lives to save residents of Shujaiya. The saddest part is that, you tell this to people and shame on you for speaking negatively about Israel. Speaking out against the state of Israel is not mutually exclusive to loving the land of Israel, to wanting to live there. There's millions of people that live there that do not like the state, that want the state changed, that hate their leadership, hate the courts. It doesn't mean that you're not appreciative of the land of Israel that God gave us. So this is the state of Israel. The state of Israel was founded by wicked people for a reason. It could not have been founded at that time, at the level that we were on, by very righteous people, because the Satan would not have allowed it, like we saw before. And what's the biggest proof of this? This is the part that's going to blow everybody away. Okay. We're going to discuss 4 links in the chain of the genealogy of Moshiach. Starts with Lot and his daughters. Then it's Yehuda and Tamar. Then it's Boaz and Ruth. And then it's David's father, Yishai, and Nitzeves. Nitzeves is David's mother. Okay? If you have not heard this before, I would highly recommend, fastening your seatbelts, taping your toupee down. This is really, really powerful stuff. Because most people, when they read these things in the Torah or in the Tanakh, they'll say, so bizarre. How did something so holy come from something so seemingly improper and almost disgusting? And there's a reason for that. Like we said, the foundation of this entire lecture is that very, very, like the Chafetz Chaim, like the Iger Shmuel said, very, very holy things have to be done in a roundabout way to trick Shochad LeSatan. Okay? So let's talk about Lot. Lot and his daughters. This is all Bereshit, chapter 19, 30 to 38. Lot went up from Zohar, and he dwelt in the mountain. His 2 daughters were there with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zohar. So he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the elder said to the younger, our father is old. There is no man on earth to come upon us, as is the custom of all the earth. Come and let's give our father wine to drink, and let us lie with him, and let us bring to life seed from our father. Where it says, and let us bring to life seed from our father, unchaye me'avinu Zerah. Okay? Unchaye me'avinu Zerah. From the seed of our father. Let us bring life from the seed of our father. That is the gematria of Zeh Melech HaMashiach. Very, very powerful. Okay? We know that every Jewish letter has a numerical equivalent. So again, unchaye me'avinu Zerah. Let us bring life to the seed from our father. Zeh Melech HaMashiach. Very, very powerful. So what happens next? They gave their father wine to drink that night, and the elder came and lay with her father. And he did not know of her lying down or her rising up. And then the next night, the younger daughter came and did the same thing. So and Lot's 2 daughters conceived from their father. The elder bore a son, and she named him Moab, meaning from my father. And the younger also bore a son and named him Ben Ami. These are the children of Ammon and Moab to this day. Okay? This is the first link in the chain of Mashiach. Mashiach comes from Moab. Moab was from the oldest daughter who had an ancestral relationship with her father. You would probably not think, if you had a bingo card, I think the last thing you'd put on your bingo card is that the start of the line of Mashiach would come through incest between a father and his eldest daughter. But sure enough, the Torah talks about that, right? The oldest daughters were planning on having the seed of Mashiach that would come from elsewhere. And who came from this? Ruth and Naamah. Ruth married Boaz, the ancestor of David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech, and Naamah married Shlomo. Ammon and Moab became sort of intertwined with the Jewish people. There's a whole nother lecture maybe I'll do on why the light of Mashiach had to be hidden in Moab. That is why the Moabites were trying so hard to kill the Jewish people, and why no man from Moab can come into the Jewish people to this day. It was an eternal decree. So again, we have Lot having incest with his daughters. So, many years ago, maybe 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was a man who all of a sudden his tongue turned black and his face turned basically black, and he was unable to speak. He had a horrifying dream. He was believe he was a rabbi as well, or a very learned Jew. He asked for Rav Moshe Feinstein, Alav Shalom, basically the gadol in America at that time, to come. He said, "This is all befalling me because I spoke lashon hara about Lot's 2 daughters, and they came to me in a dream, and they told me what their reason was." This is actually in one of the books that Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote. This is not, something that I heard from someone. This is actually a story that Rav Moshe Feinstein tells and says, I am saying that this is 100% accurate. He said to Rav Moshe Feinstein that this is my punishment for speaking negatively about Lot's daughters, specifically the older daughter. What happened here? He basically said how disgusting that it was, not only that they had an ancestral relationship with their father, but that she would name the child Moab, from my father. I mean, if you are going to have incest, which is, obviously disgusting, literally the last thing that you would want to do is just tell everybody, yeah, this is from my father. And again, the girls at the time thought, the world was exploding around them. They didn't have Wi-Fi and Twitter. They didn't know that it was only Sodom and Gomorrah and a few of the other towns that were being destroyed. They thought the whole world was being destroyed. They thought that the last 3 people on earth were Lot and the 2 sisters, the 2 daughters. They did this with very good intentions. They wanted to repopulate the earth. Our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come upon us, as is the custom of the earth. Meaning, they're saying, we think we're the last people on earth. She then had a child, saw that there were more people on the earth, and named him Moab. Why did she do this? Why? So that down the road, people would know that this wasn't an immaculate conception, that different religions in the world that would pervert, the Son of God. She never intended that. That was not what this was. She told the entire world, it's not a miraculous child. It's not, a fairy tale that millions of people believe in. This was a child that came through my father. And she should not be criticized. And she's literally the ancestress of Moshiach, right? So when this man spoke very negatively about her, these 2, they came in a dream. He said he saw 2 women in a dream, veiled, and told him basically, shame on you. What we did was very, very holy for very, very good intentions. Hence, she merits to have Moshiach come from her. Unchaye me'avinu Zerah. Ze melech ha-Moshiach. So the first link in the chain of Moshiach is incest. And it doesn't stop there. It doesn't get any better, okay? It's not like, okay, this is a one-time thing. We have to trick the Satan. No. Let's go now to Yehuda and Tamar, okay? Also Bereshis 38:15-18. It was told to Tamar, saying, behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she took off her widow's garb, covered her head with a veil, and covered her face. And she sat down at the crossroads that were on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up. But as for her, she was not given to him for a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, because she covered her face. So he turned aside to her and said, get ready now, I will come to you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what will you give me that you should come to me? And he said, I will send a kid from the herd. And she said, only if you give me a pledge until you send it. So he said, what is the pledge that I should give you? She said, your signet, your cloak, and your staff that's in your hand. So he gave them to her, and he came to her, and she conceived his likeness. Again, this is for mature audiences only. We just said that the first link in the chain of Moshiach is incest. And then we're hoping, yeah, it's going to get so much better, right? That was a one-time thing. And, the next one's going to be the most righteous. Judah sees her, Yehuda saw her, and thought she was a harlot, thought she was a prostitute. Has relations with her. 2 twins come out, right? Perez and Zerah. I mean, it should now be clear. Something unusual seems to be going on. How can, you hear Moshiach now all the time. We want Moshiach now. Moshiach is basically going to be like the embodiment of Torah and everything righteous as our leader. Yet we have now done 2 links in the chain of the ancestry of Moshiach, and we have incest, and then Yehuda, who is the melech of the 12 tribes, says, "Oh, there's a girl on the side of the road, prostitute. What should I give you so that I can have relations with you? Oh, your signet, your cloak, and your staff. Okay." Has relations with her and then has twins. Are you starting to see that maybe what the Igeres Shmuel and Chazal and the Chavetz Chaim are saying, that every single thing that is holy in this world needs to trick the Satan. The Satan would never let Mashiach come. It has to be done in very bizarre ways. Okay, now let's see. Let's get to Boaz and Ruth, the next link in the chain. Just did a whole fascinating lecture on Ruth, right? Ruth's mother-in-law says to her, "Where have you gleaned today, and where have you worked? May he who took heed of you be blessed." So she told her mother-in-law that she was in the fields of Boaz. Boaz was a family member of Naomi. Naomi says to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Lord, who did not leave off his kindness with the living or with the deceased. This man is our kinsman. He is one of our near kinsmen." Naomi, her mother-in-law, says to her, "My daughter, shall I not seek rest for you, that it be good for you?" Behold, he is winnowing the threshing floor of barley tonight. This is what Naomi tells Ruth to do. Mind you, Boaz is the leader of the generation. Putting it in modern terms, Boaz is the gadol hador of the generation. A few years ago it was Rav Kanievsky, Rav Edelstein, Rav Shach, This is what Naomi tells Ruth to do. "You shall bathe and anoint yourself and put on your clothes and go down to the threshing floor where Boaz is. Do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking." Okay? "And it shall be when he lies down that you shall know where he will lie, and you shall come and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what you shall do." I can't stress enough the peculiar nature of this relating to holiness. Naomi tells Ruth, bathe and anoint yourself and put on your clothes, meaning your Shabbos clothes, meaning look as beautiful and as special and as radiant and as magnificent as you can possibly look. Boaz will be alone in the threshing floor. Go down when he is sleeping, uncover his feet, and lie down next to him. I hope you're sitting here like, wow, this is getting really fascinating. This is such bizarre, I don't know a better word than just, this is such bizarre behavior for very, very righteous people. You don't just go to the leading rabbi of the generation who just lost his wife. Boaz's wife had just passed away, and just literally get into bed with that rabbi. I mean, I'm trying to make this as PG-13 as I can, but it needs to be discussed. This is very bizarre behavior. Why does it have to be like this? Why does it have to be incest, then prostitution, then literally just sneak into the bed of the leader of the generation? David HaMelech, who was Ruth's offspring and Boaz's offspring, said, I awake every night at midnight to thank you, Hashem. Why? Because this all happened at midnight. For another event that happened at midnight, Ruth waking up Boaz. Then we know that Boaz ended up redeeming Ruth. They got married. They had a child. Boaz died right after that. That child was then the grandfather of David HaMelech. Then came Yishai, who we'll talk about now. So again, this whole lecture is predicated on explaining why the state of Israel had to be founded in such a terrible way, with such despicable people and such tragic and just evilness that has occurred. And again, so much beauty, charitable organizations galore. Not talking about the good stuff. There's an infinite amount of good stuff there. I am talking about the negative stuff, specifically because it explains this entire lecture. Let's get to Yishai. So I mentioned the other day in the lecture that we talked about Ruth, that at some point they wanted to declare that David HaMelech was not even Jewish. Why? Because we know that I just mentioned before, there is a halacha that you are not allowed to accept a Moabite or an Ammonite convert, males. Dog then says, why do we accept the female converts from them, like Ruth, a few generations back? We should also not accept the female converts. What was the answer given? The Torah specifically says why the males were not accepted. Because they did not meet Am Yisrael when they were in the desert for 40 years with bread and water. Right? So Dog then says, so then the women should also be punished. What does Avner and then the rabbis, 2 different times, say back to Dog? The women were not expected to go out, right? The men are expected to go out. The women were expected to stay in their tent. Dog then says, I don't agree with that. The men could have gone out to the men. The women should have at least gone out to the women. Everyone was silent. No one was able to dispute Dog. It's a good point. The men were punished because they did not go out and bring bread and water. The women should have also been punished for not going out to the women to bring bread and water. No one had any rebuttal for that. They were just about to declare that David HaMelech was not even Jewish. This all started because Saul was trying to figure out if he was from Perez or Zerah, the twins of Yehuda and Tamar. Because if he was from Perez, then he would, basically be able to be the king. And Dog then says, forget about whether he's eligible to be the king. He's not even Jewish. Dog had a very, very strong point. The women should have come out to help the women. Saw this nation struggling. They needed bread. They needed water. At least come out, women to women. The men were punished, certainly. The women should have come out. Until someone said, no, the halacha is that the women were not expected to come out. Why? Because the beauty of the woman is inside the house. They give a few different examples. And it ended up being that Ruth was a eligible convert. That solidified that she was an eligible convert. But what happened before that? Let's go back many, many years before that. probably 20 or 30 years before that. There was always a nagging question with Yishai. He had doubts about the halacha, right? He knew the halacha, that a male convert from Ammon and Moab could not come to the Jewish people. But he had doubts that it only related to the men, not to the women. So what was his rationale? He was going to divorce his wife and marry his maidservant. He would then have slaves, and he would then free the slaves, to be kosher. You know, there were seven, I believe there's 7 brothers, or maybe David had 7 brothers. Either way, all of these brothers were now a suffix. Yishai had doubts. Am I even Jewish? I come from Rus. Rus is my grandmother. He had doubts about this halacha. So he was going to marry his maidservant, have children. Then when you free your slave, they become kosher Jews. He wanted at least one kosher child. So the maidservant then tells Nitzeves, Bas Adel, David's mother, and they switch places, just like Leah and Rachel switch places. David was born. They literally threw him out the window to the dogs. They thought he was a mamzer. They almost wanted to also kill their own mother, thinking that the mother had cheated on Yishai. Again, Yishai was trying to impregnate the maidservant. The maidservant loved Nitzeves. She was a very loyal maidservant, so she switches with Nitzeves, just like with Rachel and Leah. Yishai lays down with who he thinks is the maidservant. It ends up being his own wife. The wife then conceives. A few months later, when the bump shows, everyone thought that the wife had strayed. David HaMelech was treated unbelievably cruelly by his brothers, really by everybody. Only one person on earth truly knew who David was and truly treated him beautifully. And how did he get back sort of at his father for this? In Tehillim, he says, the son of my mother, and one of the most famous Pesukim. Okay, we've done the 4. Again, let's rehash. Lot and his daughters, incest. Yehuda and Tamar, prostitution. Boaz and Ruth, just getting into bed with the leader of the generation. And then Nitzeves, wife swapping. That is the ancestral line of Moshiach. This should be just so earth-shattering to people. I mean, Torah is so amazing. I mean, isn't this fascinating? I mean, gosh, this has to, even if you aren't really into studying, isn't this so fascinating? And this is like one of just an infinite amount of fascinating topics. Why does the Satan have to be tricked? Why does the Moshiach have to come from just such seediness and impropriety and just seeming immorality? Why? The goat that we sent to Azazel, literally the scapegoat. That is where it comes from. Oh, we're scapegoating the Jews. It literally comes from our Torah. The paradigm scapegoat has no sin, but he takes on the weight of a person or a nation's sins, and that somehow helps the people and the nation to cleanse themselves from the sins, no matter how grievous. An ignorant goat is sent into the desert to die and becomes basically like the Jewish people's lucky charm. We literally throw the Satan a bone. The Satan is the angel of Esav. A kapara, basically. And in the kapara, Yaakov says, I will neutralize Esav's anger. A chapra, right? Bereshit 32:21. Yaakov, what did Yaakov do when he met Esav and that, 2 brothers meeting after all those years? What happens? He bribes him. Remember, he gives him all these gifts. And Esav comes and just keeps meeting different groups and seeing all these gifts. Shochad l'satan. It was a bribe, right? It's so effective on Yom Kippur that our greatest defendant becomes the Satan. Ha-Satan has a gematria of 364. There's 365 days in the year. Why? Because there's one day of the year that the Satan is not our accuser. He actually becomes our greatest advocate and defendant. He has no ability to stir the pot against Am Yisrael on that day. Why? Because of Azazel. Azazel. The fierce one leaves, meaning we're free from the Satan on that day. We literally bribe the greatest negative spiritual force in the world, and it works. Like I said at the beginning, even at the giving of the Torah, Hashem had to distract the Satan. Hashem created a world. Hashem is all-powerful. One of the reasons he's all-powerful is because he has placed himself in his own system. Hashem does not override the system. The Satan comes and asks Hashem, where is the Torah? Tosfos says that Hashem distracted the Satan because if he knew the Torah was going to be given, he never would have let it happen. We see this elsewhere. The Shlah says, the Torah, immediately after that was the Chet Egel, the golden calf. We want to enter the land of Israel, then we have the sin of the spies. This week's Parsha, right? Then we have Hashem saves us from Bilam, and then we have the incident with Baal Peor. Anytime someone or something is about to hit a high level, the Satan comes in full force. Again, Jewish people just got the Torah. The Satan comes in full force. What comes after that? The Chet Egel. We were just given basically instructions. We're just about to go into the land of Israel. What comes after that? The Satan in full force, and then the sin of the spies. 40 years. We had to circle the desert. Bilam, we just got saved from the curses of Bilam. What comes right after that? The Satan in full force. And then the incident with Baal Peor, where thousands and thousands of Jews were slaughtered. Anytime someone or the Jewish people is about to hit a high level, the Satan comes in full force. One of the reasons we break a cup at a Jewish wedding is as a throwing the bone to the Satan, right? We have 3 hairs on the head of the tefillin, right? There's 3 hairs sticking out. Why? As a reminder of the golden calf. Also as a bone to the Satan. It makes it look like we are reminding Hashem of our own sins. If you've ever noticed, put on the head tefillin, there's 3 hairs sticking out. Hairs of a calf, right? Hairs of a cow. It's as if we're reminding Hashem to sort of quiet and placate the Satan. That is the system that Hashem set up. That's just how the world works. I mean, I gave 4 really good examples just from Moshiach. Moshiach is on the highest level. Hence why everything had to come from impropriety. I mean, it's unbelievable. How can we fight the Satan? Because the Satan tricks us so easily, you know? Guy's at a bar. He's married. He sees a girl. He wants that girl so bad. He is drunk, takes her home, has relations. Wife finds out. Think of how many lives are now destroyed because of that. For what? 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of pleasure. You ruin the rest of your life and your wife's life and the kid's life and everyone around you. And looking back, I don't think anyone that's ever been tricked by the Satan said, yeah, it was worth it. It's never worth it. All these things you look back, how in the world could I have done that? I don't care what the situation is. Where you knew better not to do it, you did it anyway, the consequences were terrible, and you thought, how in the world could I have done that? You got tricked by the Satan. The Satan comes, as the Jewish people, we have a Yetzer Hara. We have a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Ra, right? The cartoons are not wrong. We have a good, inclination and an evil inclination. That is not a cartoon. That is actual life. I had I had that thought in my head, nagging me. You got to do it. What's the big deal? That is the Yetzer Hara. That is the Satan. How do we counteract that? Just as easily as the Satan can trick us, we can also trick the Satan. How do we do that? You're walking down the road. You see a beautiful, beautiful girl dressed very modestly. You really want to get close and just stare at that girl and go talk to her. What do you do to throw a bone to the Satan? You basically say, Satan, I really want to, and you literally say this out loud. Rabbi Gladstein says you literally say this out loud. You verbalize your action. You trick the Satan. What do you say? Satan, I really want to, commit a terrible act with that girl. I really want to, just stare at that girl and go talk to her. The next time a girl comes, I'll do that. I'm too tired. And you'll see that you can see when you get all fired up and the Yetzer Hara is just like controlling you. You'll see it. It's that easy. It literally is that easy. As easy, and that's Hashem's system, as easy as the Satan can trick us, we can also trick the Satan. Try it. It's a very fascinating method. It's a tried and true method because that is how the world's set up. Hashem is a very righteous and truthful power. There is another power, not an independent power, right? There is another power that Hashem also created as the Satan. He is the Satan. He is our Yetzer Hara. He is our accuser. He is also just as easy to trick. That is a very helpful tip for anybody out there. The next time you're in the throes of the Yetzer Hara, of the Satan, trick him. He gets tricked very, very easily because it works both ways. Just as easily as he can trick you doing something that 5 minutes afterwards you think that was the stupidest thing I ever did. How in the world could I have done that? You can also trick the Satan. So let's tie this all up. Why is the state of Israel like it is? Well, in the 1800s, the only people that were in the state of Israel were basically Hasidic Jews and Yemenites. Very, very righteous Jews, loved Torah. They were there. They had no interest in forming a state. They were just Yeshuv be'eretz Israel. They were in Israel, learning Torah. Yes, things weren't easy, but that was enough for them. Why did the state of Israel had to come into being from such thoroughly wicked people? Why? Because I just proved anything that is holy has to come from impropriety, from seediness, from wickedness. Just like, seemingly, Lot and his daughters, Yehuda and Tamar, Boaz and Ruth, and Nitzevitz and Yishai. Literally, the ancestry of the most righteous person, God willing, will be coming soon, had to shochad l'satan, and so does the Jews coming back to the land of Israel. It had to be this way. We would not have been able to just come back, set up a religious, Torah law rules country. We were not on that level. It could not have happened. The Satan would not have allowed it. It had to come about from the Soroses and the Bernie Sanders and the Schumers of their time. That is a fact. If this offends you, that I'm calling, the early Zionists, they were wicked, wicked people. Somehow they had a merit to found the state. Shem put them in powerful positions. That's not my cheshbon. I don't know why it was these people and not others, but I do know, and it's very, very clear to see why the state of Israel had to come into being in this particular way. It could not have come just in perfect righteousness like we would hope for. It could not have come with, the Gadol Ador leading the way. It just didn't work out that way, and it couldn't have worked out that way. Getting back, the Chafetz Chaim cried. Why did he cry? One time they read him an article from a newspaper in which one of the Zionists, one of the founders, expressed his hope that in the end, The land of Israel would become an independent country just like Bulgaria, which was established on the ruins of Turkey. That was all this person hoped for, to just get a Bulgaria. The Chafetz Chaim burst out crying. Does this make sense? We are suffering for 1,800 years. Our blood flows like water. We increase our prayers and supplications for a respite from our difficulties from the exile. And here they satisfy themselves with Bulgaria. With Bulgaria. They have completely forgotten about the roles of our prophets and the promises of our holy Torah. Wow. And you'll see things that happen in Israel that absolutely blow your mind. You will see us kick Jews out of Gaza. You'll see us give back the Sinai. You'll see us do the Oslo Accords. For a reason. All of this terrible evil. It has to be, and we're not doing anything to help it by continuing to stray from Hashem. So what is the fix, right? And again, Chazal points it out. The Vilna Gaon was very, very clear that at the end of times, the Erev Rav will have total control of the land of Israel. And you see these people that are in control. There's nothing Jewish about them. They might have a Jewish name, a Jewish last name. They are the most anti-Semitic and wicked Jews that have ever lived. Yet they become prime ministers, Supreme Court judges, leading broadcasters, head of the unions, principals at the, professors and leaders of the universities, the head of the hospitals, all of these different things, leaders of the IDF. And you ask why? But I hope after today, there's a better understanding. What is our job? What is our job as hopefully wanting to be righteous Jews? We need to follow the Torah. Hashem created the world. He gave us 613 commandments. We need to follow them. We need to give more charity. We need to do more acts of kindness. We need to pray better. We need to learn more Torah. It's a seesaw. It is a battle in Israel and in the Jewish world as a whole between the righteous and the not righteous, I will say, and many just thoroughly wicked. It is the same spiritual battle we had in the times of the Hanukkah story. The Hanukkah story was the Jews that became Hellenized, couldn't have cared less that the land of Israel had any shaykhis to Judaism, any connection to Judaism. They were so happy to go to their games and to go to to the Olympics and all these different things, and Hashem meant nothing to them. But then there were a few Jews, the Maccabees, that had had enough. And we all need to channel that. The Hanukkah story is not the cutesy little tale of, oil lasting, because that wasn't such a miracle. There were much bigger miracles that went on. Shimon HaTzadik, the lamp lasted 40 years. The miracle was that a small few that loved and cherished Hashem were able to destroy the empire of that day, which proves what? No matter how bleak the situation looks, no matter how wicked you look at, say, the Supreme Court or, some of the people in the Knesset, there's hope and there's a way out and there is a path, but that path is only through the Torah. The state of Israel could not have been founded in any other way. It was just not possible at that point and was not going to happen. And Hashem had to, again, trick the Satan. Just like he had to do with the giving of the Torah. Just like he had to do when the Jews went into Israel. Just like he had to do for Moshiach. Again, who did Moshiach come from? Total and utter, just bizarre impropriety. Incest, then prostitution, then just, a beautiful woman getting into the bed of the leader of the generation, and then literally the swapping of a wife is the ancestral line of Moshiach, the Messiah, Moshiach ben David. What is the hope here? What is the silver lining in this lecture? The more despicable and evil and outrageous When you look back on 77 years of the state of Israel, some of its founders, some of the horrifying things that they did, the medical experiments, the stealing of the Yemenite children, bragging about risking Jewish, just wasting Jewish life to save Muslims. What's the hope? Something so wicked, so improper, so seedy, so disgusting will also blossom into the same exact thing that the ancestral line of Moshiach. Who is Moshiach? The most righteous person who will lead us into the Geula, into the redemption. And Eretz Israel is a big part of that. The state of Israel is a step in the chain. Anyone that wants the state of Israel, our current government, our current way of life there, to continue forever has no idea the promises, like the Chafetz Chaim says, of the prophets. The land of Israel will at some point be perfection. It will be what every single prophet, all over the Torah, all over the Talmud, every single big rabbi for the generations says the beauty of what Eretz Israel is going to be, but it's not that yet. But one thing that we can have hope and have comfort in is knowing, just like the incest and the prostitution, the state of Israel is a link in the chain, hopefully the final link of the chain before our Geula. Wishing everybody a wonderful, wonderful day. If anyone would like to sponsor a lecture, would like to talk Torah, my only goal in doing this is to bring very powerful, creative lectures, nonstop MS truth, in the hopes that Jews will realize there is a better life out there. There is a life out there where you feel powerful and connected to your fellow Jews, to God, to the source of your soul, to your purpose in life, to your destiny. That comes through the Torah, God's greatest gift to the Jewish people. And my hope is that everyone, after watching these lectures, shares them. Maybe they want to sponsor a lecture. Maybe they want to just message me, you know what? This lecture is fascinating. Where do I start? And I'm here. I'll help you in any way that I can. All you have to do is just take that first step, and God willing, Hashem will do the rest. Have a wonderful day.